All right, briefly, if you want to look at your insurance sheet, uh, it's just the same thing we give you every year. It's the total number of the coverages that you have on the building and contact information if you were to need a certificate of insurance, either for a windstorm or flood, or whatever the case may be. I would point out to you that, fortunately, your board saw the wisdom, even though it was not cheap, to buy the windstorm buyback policy when we renewed the coverage back in May. Although it cost about $40,000, what that did is it brought down your total exposure from a windstorm loss like Hurricane Sally to $25,000. Normally, that amount would be, without that policy, anywhere from 1 to 3% of the total amount of coverage that you had on the building. And that would have been, in your case, you've got $29,400,000 coverage, so, at 2% or 3%, that would have been pretty sporty. So you're very fortunate in that $25,000 will wind up being what the total deductible will be that you will have to
Is that
absorb.
something we normally don't purchase?
Well, it has varied over the years. Sometimes the market does not offer those policies. And sometimes the cost of them is so prohibitive, as in past years after Hurricane Ivan in '04, those policies just went through the roof. And a lot of people decided not to buy them. And there's also changes in the master policy from time to time as to what your deductible is. Sometimes it might be quoted at 1%, it might be 2%. 2 years later, it might be 3%. All that really depends on what the market conditions are and what they have been from losses that the insurance companies have taken on.
What was the driver in purchasing it this year?
Well, you've had it the last couple of years.
So we look back at 2009, Kerry found in the notes where we had a $600,000 deductible at 3% in 2009. We started buying it down about around that time frame, if it was offered for between $30,000 and $50,000 a year.
Now,
We just knew there was gonna be a storm at some
Right.
point,
I discussed with the board yesterday, my crystal ball is no more clear than anybody else as to what the hell the insurance market's gonna be next year. With everything that's been going on the Gulf Coast with multiple storms and losses. They may very well not even offer these policies next year. Or if they do, $40,000 might look like a real bargain. I mean, it might be $75,000, $80,000 that somebody wants for one of those policies. So we really won't know until we get about 60 days out of renewal next year, kind of what the market's going to be like. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the total cost of the damage from Sally? I didn't say that, like how much you had to pay for repairs and all of that in comparison to what our deductible is?
The only thing we have at this time, we finally, from the adjuster who is handling the billing, got an estimate, and this is what he has turned into the insurance company. This does not mean this will be what the claim will be finally. It might be less, it might be more. But he had turned in $1,632,000, I think, as the total claim. Briefly, without taking up a whole lot of time, I told the board yesterday that the claims process this time around is entirely different than I have ever experienced in the 40 years that I've been dealing with insurance companies down here. Every building on the beach that has had damage has a field adjuster that has been assigned, and he's the guy that comes in and gets with us and views all the damage, and he works up his estimates to turn into the insurance company. There's a inside adjuster who then takes and reviews that to see if there is sufficient information, if they agree or disagree with some of the computations that he's turned in, And then, in most cases, in the 4 major buildings that I'm dealing with right now, they have turned around then and sent a building consultant to the building to check behind the adjuster. And that is a consultant that is being sent by the insurance company. And he's trying to verify whether he concurs or not with the estimates. Then they are sending an engineer from the insurance company to look at things like the roof, the building envelope, the exterior of the building, the amount of water intrusion that's being claimed, again, on behalf of the insurance company to see if they concur with those estimates. Now, what that has done is slowed down this whole process to a quagmire. We are 50-plus days into it since the storm. Not one single building that I'm involved in up and down the beach has received 1 red cent of insurance money yet. So everything that's been done to date, repair-wise, has been either work that's been done and not yet invoiced to the association for payment, or smaller amounts that have been done that we've been paying out of reserve and operating funds to this point. And I couldn't begin to tell you when we're going to get money from the insurance company. Now, I talked with one of the local agents yesterday who has been in touch with the insurance commission of the state, complaining about the slow process that everybody, and it's not just big buildings, it's residential structures, it's, you know, it seems like it's a total situation that they're involving this process. So, but if you look at the sheet that was prepared, that Robert had worked up showing the expenses to date that have been incurred, then you'll see that they total about $700,000 less than the amount that the adjuster says he has turned into the insurance company. We're showing $968,374, and I think Lance's number was, let's see, $1,662,000. So there is some room there. Of course, there's other work to be done yet. No work's been done on the roof except for temporary repairs. We have an estimate on replacing the roof. We were told by the adjuster and by the engineer that they both concur with replacing the roof, but whether or not the insurance company will agree with that, it remains to be seen. We have not had confirmation.
What's the estimated cost to replace the roof?
Robert, what was
I want to say that was 340 or 360, something on that order. Call it roughly $350,000, which is a great estimate for a roof our size.
Yeah, that's
When
what
would
we
that
have.
happen?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, when would that repair, like, the repair happen?
Well, the temporary repairs, were made immediately after the storm,
Okay,
but we don't know yet when we'll actually replace the roof. A lot of that's going to be dependent upon what the insurance company says.
is that repair similar to like a stucco thing where you'll have to like block off parking lots, or is that a little bit easier?
There will be for a short period of time, for them to get material up to the roof, they will have to bring a crane into one section of the parking lot, but normally that doesn't last but a couple of days. Once they get all their material up and get stuff down, that's not a lengthy process.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then at that point, do they have to remove all the AC units on the roof?
No, the AC units are installed on racks up on the roof, and they will work around that. They routinely do that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Hey, can I get you to go back and reconcile the prepaid and the insurance numbers? You got the budget, you got a total cost of 201, you got a prepaid of 142, and then you got another payable insurance of 111.
All right, I'm sorry, I asked the question again.
Reconcile the number, you got a total insurance cost of 201.
Right,
You got a prepaid, an asset, current assets of 142,
Right.
prepaid, and then you got a current liability, no payable of 111.
all right, here's the way all that works. When we renew the coverage in May, the insurance companies require a 25% down payment. Then we finance the balance of the premiums over 8 to 9 months to coincide with the cash flow of assessments coming in every month to the account. Then your flood insurance has to be paid up front. It is not something that you can finance generally. And so you incur all that expense up front. So that would go to your prepaid insurance plus all of the other payments that have been made from May up and well through October. We will be making the November assessment payment, insurance payment, probably around the 14th, I think, of this month is when it comes due. Does that answer your question?
No. It's $201,000, and if you add the two together, it's $253,000.
Well, there's still money to be paid. We prepaid
I
all of
understand,
it.
so by the time we end up, we'll pay $200,000.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're on it.
The last installment will be paid around February of next year.
Not to get ahead, but on the income statement, on the budget, it's 175 versus 200.
Well, understand, the budget was a guesstimate
Okay.
at the time the budget was adopted as to what the cost would be.
200 is the number.
I'm scared to even tell you what the budget number is gonna be for 2021.
I understand.
We find that number out just a month or so in advance of our premium renewal, right? And we do our budgets now at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So we
We'll
had 3 or 4
prepare,
months there, we may put 200 in the budget, and in May, we find out it's gonna be 475. We gotta go back to
You still hitting the estimated $10,000 a month surplus?
well, assuming that you don't have any extraordinary expenses in the operating account that prevents you from putting that into the reserve fund. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes?
On our insurance, what does it cover on our interior of our condo unit? What does it cover?
These policies on your building and others have what is called an all-in provision. What that means is, in the event like Sally, everything in the unit that was damaged as a result of the storm would be covered by the master policy, except for your personal property, your furnishings. And if you went in, let's say you went into your unit and you did some high dollar flooring that, was not the original flooring that was delivered. Or if you did a bunch of other interior work. Now, those betterments, improvements should be a part of what your individual owner policy is, that you would want to have some level of coverage there to protect you from loss of those items. But everything else, appliances, cabinets, sheet rock, all the all-in provision, that's something that was started about, 10 years ago now. That most of these policies are pertaining.
Glass doors, tile floors.
Yes,
So would that include the AC unit interior?
no.
No.
No. The AC unit on the roof is your individual unit. Now, in the event of the storm, because they were damaged by the storm, normally we're able to get that covered by the insurance coverage. That has been the case in all past storms. And we're being told by the adjuster that that's not going to change this time. But again, we do not have final confirmation that that is the case. Yes,
Good morning. Anthony Chorky, 1303. On our crime policy through CNA, is that full-blown cyber coverage as well? Do we have exposure there? Are we covered where we should be on that separate?
no, what that is basically, it's for somebody stealing money from
Correct.
the association.
So do we have exposure here in cyber that we should be looking into going forward? Because those policies are out there, been for a while, and are typically sometimes well advised to consider,
Well,
depending on cost.
really, I don't know that you've got at the association, at the building. I mean, the only thing Robert has is his computer in the office there, and the only thing he's got in there is just general information. He gets invoices from somebody or whatever. There's not any sensitive material there, or he doesn't have financial information there. All of that is in our office on the mainframe and backed up in the cloud.
So we couldn't figure out what his fantasy football picks are.
Well, you'd have to ask him. I don't know.
So Young's has it, right?
I'll tell you.
Young's has cyber?
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
So our next expense is the elevator. Can you comment on how much money we have in the reserves that's sufficient to do elevator repair, or how do we plan to pay for the elevator?
Well, the plan, if you remember, if you were at the meeting last year that the board discussed, was the $250,000 assessment that was levied last year was basically an assessment to help rebuild your reserve fund.
Right.
And as we've talked about, most of that money we have. The total of the elevator, the current modernization project is $459,000. There was $114,000 and change that was paid up front back in June as required with the contract for ordering the parts. And the parts are here on hand. ThyssenKrupp has them. And when they start the project, they will then bill monthly progress billing for the balance. So the balance of the contract is about 300 and, let's see, I've got that right here. $344,000. And I think the plan is to use the as much of the $250,000 assessment. We have a line of credit at the bank that is $500,000. And the line of credit currently has a available balance of $385 because the $114 upfront payment for parts was drawn on the line of credit. Now, at some point, and the board can discuss this with you, but my estimation is at some point in the process, it may become necessary down the road for an assessment of some amount to repay the line of credit for the balance of that contract, which would be around $350,000.
No, that's two elevators or one elevator?
No, it's both elevators, both elevators.
That's going to be the first item under new business when we get into that section of this meeting. We've got representatives from ThyssenKrupp here to discuss the modernization project and what we're looking at coming up ahead, and that's not long from now.
Was there any damage to the elevator due to the storm?
Yes.
It
Yeah,
might be covered by insurance.
Yes.
And that would, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I don't want to get ahead of the game here, but we really don't know yet until we settle with the insurance company whether we're going to have an assessment in the future or whether or not what we've already got.
We want to discuss that. We want to discuss that a little bit later, but we do anticipate there would be an assessment of some amount due to the storm. Many of you have assessment insurance. And so that may or may not, once things fall out, we'll find out whether that's going to be a separate assessment or not, just to keep things straight. That's later.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, David. The next item on the agenda is David Eddy and Jimmy Hendricks with ThyssenKrupp Elevators. And they are going to explain exactly what we are doing for the modernization of the elevators.
Morning. Thanks, David Eddy, branch manager with ThyssenKrupp Elevator. Jim with me is our modernization and installation manager. And just kind of wanted to answer the question for you about the elevators or the modernization.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sure. We're here to answer any questions that you have about the elevators or the elevator modernization.
Would you just give us an overview of what you will be doing?
Overview of what we will be doing with the modernization is, that'll be basically a replacement of all the electronics that we've been talking about for the past couple of years. The first phase were the doors, the door operators, all the mechanical workings throughout the hoistway. This next phase here, the controllers and all the fixtures, the car stations inside the car, basically everything that is electronic is this phase here for the modernization. That is basically the brain upstairs that controls everything, all the devices throughout the hoistway, push buttons, wiring throughout the hoistway, and that is the final phase.
Are the upgrades gonna be to a marine standard, or are they gonna be basically replacing to the original standard that the building was built at?
Well, there's really not a marine standard for elevators right now, but Bob Dieter, the consultant, has went as far as he could to spec to make it more marine standard. Of course, the original phase, the phase with the doors and the mechanical items, explosion or waterproof or water resistant locks, and the zinc dichromate headers and door tracks and hangers. And so that was that phase of it. This phase of it, one thing that he did is rather than a system that communicates through 3 wires, like from each hall station or inside the car, these devices all run back to the main controller rather than having different what we call CAN devices that communicate almost through a link. Each wire that it needs runs back to the controller, which helps it with not trying to troubleshoot this device mid-hoistway that communicates to 10 different devices. So at that point, if something like that gets moisture, water damage or whatnot, that it's not subjected to that because that's upstairs in the machine room where it's dry and climate control. So some measures the measures that we could take, that he could take, have been taken.
At the end of the day, you guys have done a mechanical renovation, and now you're doing electronic renovation.
Yes, sir.
What's gonna be left that's original to the original construction?
The only thing that's going to be left are the machines.
The cart itself?
No, the cart itself, we changed the shell, so to speak, the inside, the walls, the flooring, everything with the first phase. When I say the machine, that is the driving machine upstairs that the cables run over the top of. The controller tells the machine whether to move up or down, and that's going to be the only thing that's original to it.
Okay.
What's the life of that?
The life of that, I mean, if it's taken care of, it should be, I hate to quote the life.
When are we looking at replacing?
That's,
Is that like the big electric motor up there?
it is,
Okay.
it is,
It's a big electric motor.
yeah.
I know.
I mean, and that
It's an
would,
enclosed motor, isn't it?
I'm sorry,
It's an enclosed motor,
it's in the climate controlled room up there,
yes.
but it is enclosed.
And does it have maintenance? Is there any way to maintain it,
Yeah, I mean,
grease
we
it, oil
maintain-
it?
Right, we maintain, the ropes that are on it, and I mean, it really is kind of self-maintained, this particular, because it's a gearless machine. But to replace those, at the same time would have been another, $150,000 per elevator.
Right, so when do you think we
When-
might have to replace it?
I have not, I mean, since this, product was installed, I have not seen one go bad yet. So, I mean, as far as, a time,
I'll be dead and gone.
I might be too.
Yeah, so,
You know, in discussions that I've had with Bob Dieter, our consultant, it's not uncommon for, and David would probably concur with this, it's not uncommon for those machines to run 30 years or so. I mean, you know, again, they're climate controlled environment.
Yeah.
And they're pretty simple machines. It's not like a lot of this other complicated stuff that they've had to replace before.
Okay.
But we're not talking 3 years here.
Right.
No,
Okay.
Now, if a jet plane crashes into the penthouse up there, yeah, you could be at 3 years.
No, we're insured for that.
Maybe.
Navy is.
but, the modernization project itself, I know you had mentioned that all the material here is here. We've still got a couple items to show up, simply because, and I know everybody knows, it's when we're all wearing masks. COVID has slowed everything down. You know, Sally has slowed down some of our material vendors.
What were you doing last year?
I'm sorry.
What were you doing last year? Seemed like you was working
Yeah.
on the elevator.
Last year, we were finishing up the first part of phase 1, which was the door equipment. Yes, ma'am.
Right now, we have indicators on each level for where each elevator is, what floor they're on. Are we gonna ever have that on each floor? So
We've got it on the ground floor, but not on each individual floor.
Right.
Jimmy, that's not, okay, it's only gonna be the main floor then, just like it is now.
Okay, and is there some way we can make a determination if the elevator is being held on purpose on a floor? People will call in and say the elevator's broken, but it's not broken. Somebody's hosing it up there. So
Okay.
is there,
Well, we don't get a lot of calls, you know, that are like that we show up and the elevator's, you know, back in service. When you say call, who are they calling?
Isn't there an alarm that goes off if they open the door open?
Yeah, there's, it's
Instead of
got,
stopping from not doing it, you know?
yeah, it's got an alarm on it, it's got, you know, it's got big red lights that run, of course, as you guys know, like, you know, that say, you know, the doors aren't ready to close right now, so. I mean, you're always gonna have that, you know, especially in a building that, you know, has got residents in it, you know, trying to move carts in and out. But it shouldn't shut the elevator down by doing that.
David, on that subject, in a broader sense, could you discuss what modernization is going to mean in terms of what ThyssenKrupp is going to know about the operation of the elevators and any kind of incidents that require service?
As far as what we're going to know about them,
Yeah, you had told me before that with the modernization, y'all will have a better handle on what is actually happening with the elevators in real time.
that was actually, that was actually only if we were able to install our controllers in it, that's the Max product.
Oh, but we have had different controllers.
The
is that
fact that
correct?
we're not changing the machines, the only controller, there's only 2 places that will make a controller that will match with that code 8 machine. So we won't have that Max product, unfortunately.
What's our estimated time frame now for starting and maybe finishing the first elevator, finishing the second elevator?
I take that, Jim?
Yeah, we're receiving material every day now, and once we have all the material for one elevator, I'll get started. I have 2 crews across the street at Crystal Towers, and I'm gonna move them straight across the road to you as soon as I have enough material to get started. My head guy at Crystal Towers is gonna run both jobs, so we'll have dual support. If we need more people over on Crystal Shores West, we'll move over there and just bounce back and forth.
any estimate of when that start might be?
Within the next couple of weeks,
And how long do they move each elevator?
about 6 weeks per elevator.
So at the end of the 6 weeks, then we should not problem with the one working elevator going down, period, end of story, and has a whole new system, it's good to go, right?
Right. I can't say you're not gonna have any problem.
I need you to tell me I don't have any.
There is an adjustment period, but we'll have someone on site. So if the elevator goes down, the new elevator goes down, we'll know. And once we tie them together, you know, there'll be an adjustment phase, but you're gonna be much better off.
The normal life expectancy of an elevator is about 20 years. After a modernization is completed, your life expectancy of that elevator should be another 20 years, 20 plus years. Not to say we won't have additional problems. Those problems should be minimal, especially, you know, you can do repairs on elevators, but when you get into a modernization, you're basically recreating that elevator. So that should take you through a much longer term than just simple repairs.
Yeah, I guess that was my question, because I know last time when we were doing the elevators, a big issue was the one working elevator we had kept going down.
Right.
And so I just wanted to make sure in my brain that once this is actually able to get started and one is completed, then that should not be an issue.
And that's why this process has been a little bit longer, because a simple repair can take such a short amount of time. Actual modernization, especially dealing with COVID and all the trouble in getting parts, is just prolonging the process. But your elevators should be in much better condition, not saying they won't break down from, you know, folks holding them open, you know, things of that nature. But for the most part, you should have pretty much brand new elevators.
And the parts we do have to order, hopefully these guys are gonna have them in stock, they don't have to be custom made or ordered from Canada or
Oh,
whatever,
that,
like they were for the older, antiquated, you know, parts we used to have. That was a big delay a lot of times. It was some board, even a button cover, whatever, it had to be manufactured. And that would take, you know, 3, 4, 5 days with flying in. So I mean, we're really hoping to see a dramatic downturn in the outage and the service calls as well as the service level. But I mean, while this one elevator is the only one working, we went through a call last week or 2 weeks ago with the board and with TK and Deidre with, I mean, actually how much heat this one elevator is creating every time it stops on their floor, it opens and closes, you know, 12 times up and down, and like, how do we mitigate that so we don't have any problems with this one elevator? And so I didn't realize this thing is really, when the building was so full, I mean, this thing is really working hard. And, I mean, we try to look at how to minimize the allergies even by giving a break.
What is the out of service rate on that existing elevator? I mean, for the past month or so. Is it out every day at some point in time?
I'd say it's too high, but, I mean, it's the only one working, so.
It's been on the order of almost every week, but a lot of that is due to Hurricane Sally.
Okay.
That completely knocked both elevators out of service. They had to rob parts off of elevator number 2 to get elevator number 1 working.
Right.
I just have a question. I'm just curious, how many of you have been here when we have only had 1 or no elevators? Yeah, so you see why we have to do this.
So our out of service rate is getting better since we have cannibalized some parts and we've moved
Yes, and we
tasks on.
did a full preventive maintenance early one morning. That stretched into late in the morning and into the afternoon, in fact, because when you start digging in to a problem like that, you've heard, if it works, don't fix it. But to Christie's point, we wanted to make sure that this elevator was going to work during this time while we're modernizing elevator number 2. And so it is working better. There are still going to be hiccups and problems as long as we still have the old Kone electronics in there. And then thereafter, as everybody has said, once in a while, there is still going to be an outage. Every elevator in the world is going to have that. We're going to be mitigating these as much as possible. I can't stress enough how well these elevators would function originally if they were in an enclosed airspace, air-conditioned in Dayton, Ohio, instead of building them out in the open, a touchdown away from the Gulf of Mexico. She scores every hour on these elevators. With the new electronics, I believe that's a NEMA 4 rated system. Is that correct?
For the haul stations, the haul stations that are subjected
Right.
to the weather.
Can y'all describe what that is?
NEMA 4 is basically explosion proof. They use it in factories and mills. It's practically sealed. You can't spray a water hose on it and get water in it. The biggest problem down here on the coast is the sweating and the humidity and everything. They actually sometimes get water in them from the environment. And we pull the cover off and there's water in there from that. But keep in mind that your Kone system you have now is the most difficult, most expensive equipment there is to maintain. A push button on your, say, floor 9, one button costs ThyssenKrupp or any other company almost $400 just for a button. You're not going to have that with this new system.
And David's been painting those with urethane to
Yeah.
conformally coat them in his garage.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I just like to say, I don't know if it's the right time, but, you know, I've been keeping up with what Robert's been posting on Facebook, and the folks working with us from CK, the techs especially, been riding up and down the elevators, getting there at 4 a.m. in the morning, and analyzing parts from one or the other, and as an electrical engineer, working on somebody else's problems is always, you know, it takes a lot of fortitude, right? Because, yeah, anyway, but thank you very much, they're doing a great job.
You're going to be very happy with your new system.
And he brings up a good point. We did change, we had they're coming in now at 4 a.m. or whatever the hours are to do preventive maintenance, so that it's not down during the day. We try to get it, you know, use less outages during the day. We're paying extra to have them come in off hours and do that and keep it up and going.
Are you finding now that we've moved into the off-season and occupancy rates are down and elevator usage is down, hopefully the outage is down as well?
Until the day before yesterday. But the short answer is yes.
What happened there for you?
I don't know
All the
exactly.
owners showed up.
Oh, David, do you know what had caused the outage yesterday evening?
Yesterday evening, I know Jason went out there. He didn't touch base with me as to what it was, but I can check with him today.
All right, I feel like it was similar to what had happened before, though. We were seeing some of the same behavior. On the ground floor, if you were to press the call button, it would light, and then as soon as you took your thumb off of it, it would go dark again. And it was just stuck up on the 12th floor. And so my conjecture would be that was some kind of a door sensor issue. The elevators go into sort of a safety mode if they think there's something wrong with the door, and they're not going to operate until that kind of issue is fixed. And we're hoping, again, that this addresses a lot of that kind of concern.
Yeah.
Sir?
Kind of a management maybe question in terms of insurance liability, and I don't want to spend more money than we have to, but do we have, or is this the time to install, if it's advisable, infrastructure for security cameras with electronics, if down the road, could it help us with insurance? I don't know what best practices are here from management standpoint, but that's something we should think about, especially while we're doing the guts. I don't know.
Well, we have been in negotiations with Secure Vision for our internet phone cable. And that is one thing we are going to do at some point is put cameras in the elevators. And we discussed yesterday, the board is pre-wiring those. We have not had a chance to talk to the elevator company about that or Secure Vision.
Sure.
So at this particular moment, we're not going to put cameras in, but we want to get the wiring in.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
when we get our negotiations with Secure Vision complete and we're all satisfied and on the same page,
Okay,
And-
so while we're doing this electronic infrastructure, we can get it in place.
that's our hopes.
Good,
That's
that'd be
our
great.
plans. If we
So that just involves designating a couple of lines on the traveling cables, is that correct?
Yes.
So this is an easy peasy kind of thing for y'all to do ahead of
Yes,
time.
that's no problem. We meet a guy from Secure Vision or whoever and help him hook it up. And I can honestly say from experience down here on the coast, that is the best investment you can make on your elevators with cameras in it. Because you will, a lot of your billable callbacks that you get from vandalism and whatever, you'll have it on camera and you can turn around and put that call to the person.
So the short answer is yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
So elevator that's currently out of service gets the new electronic gut into it and goes back in service while we take the next one out, are we going to have the issues of it going down, or is it gonna be, like you said, it's gonna be like a new elevator and it should work properly?
It's gonna be a brand new elevator. Only thing that's not gonna be changed is your steel, the rails that the elevator rides on, the elevator structure, your door frames, machine. Only thing you're keeping electrically is your machine. And that's what drives the cables and moves the car up and down. But as far as the electronics and everything's new.
So what kind of warranty are we getting on parts and labor for this renovation?
Your contract covers parts and labor, so that's it, the warranty, comes along with what you guys already pay for monthly service.
So what you do now when you come to repair it is included in our monthly service fee.
Yes, ma'am.
And that fee will continue after elevators renovate.
Yes.
Will go down because elevators are new and now you don't need to run and check them so much?
I'm sorry.
Would the maintenance fee go down because their elevators are newer and you don't have to come here every evening to fix them?
No, it won't go down, because there's still, everything in the hoistway still needs to be maintained. Everything constantly needs to be checked, lubricated, adjusted, and that's part of what we do.
Most of the maintenance contracts are 5-year, 10-year agreements.
Mhm.
So even with the new elevators put in, that agreement still stays in place. So nothing changes with that.
It seems like when we're making such a big investment, we should have some kind of relief from those costs for a period of time, right? Because equipment is new and it typically has warranty, I'm just thinking from common sense.
All the elevator companies, they all have maintenance agreements, and some are 5-year agreements, some are 10-year agreements. And when those agreements are covered, regardless if your elevators are older, newer, you still have the same maintenance agreement.
Like currently, we have a maintenance agreement with them. So every time this tech comes out from Mobile or Futile or wherever they're coming, we're not having to pay extra for
Yeah, I
that.
understand that part, yeah.
So,
But I'm just saying he wouldn't have to come every day, hopefully, once 2 elevators are new. So I was expecting our recurring costs to go down because equipment is newer, but sounds like that's not gonna happen.
If you buy a new car, you get a new warranty.
That's the idea I was saying.
And quite honestly, the maintenance agreement it's not that expensive. It's not as bad as you would think. I don't know our numbers off the top of my head, but with other associations that I'm affiliated with, I know those, and it's not bad.
Hopefully we'll save money on not having to buy our engineer parts,
$2,000.
$4 buttons and things like that. That we pay for today.
Basically, your maintenance agreement is kind of like an insurance policy. You pay it up front, and
That's
might need it and you might
exactly
not.
Essentially, yes.
And then you have them on speed dial in the event.
I have them
think
on
that's
speed
happening.
And I want to say, David has talked to me at any time of the day, holidays, weekends, once as his boat had broken down out in the Gulf and was being towed back in. So this is night and day compared with dealing with Kone elevators. And we've gotten a lot of bang for our buck. Nobody's going to be more relieved at the modernization than the techs who have to come out in the middle of the night when these old Kone pieces and parts break down. So, I think we're on the order, I want to say $2,460 a month or something for that. And if you know the cost of union labor and union overtime labor, they have to suck all that up until these elevators are working much more properly.
You estimate that the parts will be in and you'll be able to start within the next couple of weeks. Are there any vendors that you're doubting their ETA on?
No, everything's on track. Our biggest issue is just getting it here.
So realistically, you'll have one elevator finished in January and the next elevator finished in March.
That's definitely our goal. I hope to be out of there way before March. The first one's gonna take longer than the second one, because while we're doing the first elevator, we're gonna do a lot of work for the second elevator. So I hope I'm not there, Mark. Come on, sir.
I have a question on what you just said. You said that while you're doing elevator 2, you're also gonna be doing some work on elevator 1. Is that gonna cause elevator
No.
1 to be dangerous?
No, when I say we're doing work, it's just work that we'll just tie right into that
Gotcha.
elevator. So we won't be shutting the other, the only way we would ever shut the other elevator down is for a safety issue. If we have to get over there, you know, we're not gonna let an elevator run 350 foot a minute and our guys trying to work with it flying by. We're gonna screen it and everything to protect them, but if it gets to a point, we may have to shut it down for an hour or so, but we will schedule that.
So the same crew that's working on the elevator is maintaining the one that's working at the same time. So some of your labor is going to both sides, so it slows it down.
Yeah.
One quick question. I know we talked about it earlier. The controller are the same. And you mentioned the fact that obviously the breakdowns will go away with the new electronics. But interested to know if any efficiencies gained with the new electronics with these elevators. Will the elevators still work the same? Or will there be any kind of ability to make them run more efficiently?
Like that, or?
Your elevator only runs as fast as your building will support.
Yep.
The height of your building decides how fast your elevator runs. You don't wanna have, your cars now are 350 foot a minute. You don't want a 500 foot a minute car in a building your size, because when it tries to stop, it's gonna buckle your knees. So,
That'd be fun for the kids.
so it's based on the rise of your building. So as far as efficiency, you know, there's some door times you can change. That's just, we gotta come up with a good plan.
That's when you get going.
But that's all in the final adjustment.
Gotcha.
You know, we can make the doors stay open 8 seconds, or we can make them stay open 20 seconds, or anything. But the longer you keep them open, the less efficient it is. So, but you don't want it closing too quick, because then you're going, you know, people's gonna be holding it. So it's all an adjustment thing.
Yeah.
Based on you gotta know your building.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, also to Jimmy's point, I mean, there are different variations on where you can park each elevator. You park one down as part of the top level parking garage, and then one near the top. So that way, if someone needs to come down from the top, they've got one a lot closer. But if you don't have a lot of traffic that travels, you know, from the top down, it's better to have both of them parked low where the majority of the traffic is. So in your particular building, you may want to park one on P3 and one on P1. But that's going to be something that we can change, you know, and Robert's always really helpful with that kind of information on, you know, where we should park it.
That's just programming.
It's just programming, yep.
and that can be changed 2 years from now. It's not something that once my guys will set it up, and then the service guy will make the adjustments as to what you need to do.
Now,
And that kind of goes to the point what I'm saying is it more efficient? Because it's simpler to do that programming now with the electronics. It should be, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, I mean, because if you have the left elevator going up and down all the way part 12 and it has to run, is that the one doing all the work? And the other one's midway, and it's not working as hard. You have the ability to switch them back and forth to minimize the maintenance moving forward. Those types of simple things.
Yeah, that's all in the program, and you just log on and you just make it work.
And that was a lot more difficult with the Kone system. We did make an adjustment early this summer, you know, because as y'all know, with the COVID and Gulf Shores being one of the few places that was really open, we were overwhelmed with lots of people on the building, and the elevator traffic just skyrocketed. And you have a primary and a secondary elevator, the way the Kone system was designed to run. And so the secondary was doing all of the work while the primary just sat back. We used to call that a master and a slave elevator. We're not allowed to do that anymore. So the slave elevator was doing all of the work, and that was inefficient, and we asked them to address that, and they did. And prior to Sally, we had much more efficient operation of the elevator. So that is something we'll be looking at and trying to fine tune. And any help y'all can give us along the way as we go through that process would be very welcome.
So an announcement over the loudspeaker throughout the building is the only way we're notified of an out of service, right?
Well, there's that, and
On the website.
and on the Facebook group website that we have. It's hard to conceive of a different way to do it. I think Christy was the one that suggested that we start doing that on the Facebook group. And that's been helpful.
Yeah.
We can say, hey, this is the elevator is out, the ETA for the tech is at this time, and then later on we can say the elevator is back in service.
Too much trouble to do that via group text? Because if you're out on the beach, or you're at the grocery store, or you're even on the parking deck, you're not gonna hear those announcements.
That's true. I do not have a group text set up for 108 people. And when you send that out, then people start responding, and then all 108 of you start getting 30, 40 texts.
Well, you're not doing it right.
It's gonna be a moot point after they get done with.
Can you put maybe on each floor, the piece of paper on each floor says that it is not working? Because sometimes you'll stand there and wait for it and it never comes, right? But if someone go floor to floor and just put a piece of paper if it's out for a long period of time, so you don't have to stand there.
Why do you hate me?
I just want you to exercise.
Yeah, that's right. And that is exercise. That's printing it all, running upstairs, taping it all down. When I taped the COVID restriction signs in front of each elevator door, that literally took me 2 hours to do, by which time the elevator might be fixed.
Yeah, it is a challenge, though. We would not have known the other night had a nice person not have said, hey, the elevator's down.
Yeah, Garrett made that announcement. So we've trained Garrett to do that. I still have to train Jim to do that. Linda's been trained to do that. I can do that. I'm not sure if Aaron has ever made one or not, but if you heard somebody with a thick country accent, that was Aaron. But we do try to announce to the building when the elevator is out of service. And we do try to announce when it is back in. I think we missed that this past time around. Do you guys have any more questions for the guys here?
I got one. Yes, sir. During one elevator and there's a lot of construction going on, if an elevator is overloaded due to construction product, will the elevator shut down and automatically reset?
On the new ones it will.
But not on ones we have now?
The one that you have right now, it's really kind of difficult to overload an elevator, really, because they design the floor space for the capacity of the elevator.
Yeah.
But if you brings we can bring 500-pound weight carts in there, enough of them to overload the elevator. But it is really difficult to get enough, everyday items into an elevator to overload.
What about piles of tile?
That could do it.
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Right now, with the system that you have, it should not allow the elevator to leave the floor, and then as soon as it is unloaded, it should go back into service.
Yes.
It should.
And keep in mind that if it says 3,000-pound capacity, it'll actually haul it
Right.
25%. So 3,000 pounds is not gonna shut it down typically or cause problems, make it slip traction or whatever. It's got a buffer zone in there.
Yes, sir.
Before. Please don't.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming and explaining it. David Bodenhammer is going to report, this is old business from last year. We talked about a reserve study, which would tell how long each thing would last, like elevators, the roof, all those things. And that's called a reserve study. And David Bodenhammer has some information on our reserve study.
Well, I really don't have any information other than we're trying to get a firm to do that. And it'll be a process that'll be very simple this time because we're gonna have a lot of new figures. I had put together back in February a list of all the current projects that have been done the last couple of years at the building. The elevator modernization, the stucco removal and repair, waterproofing and painting of the exterior of the building, all those types of things. All of which would be included in the new reserve fund study and would establish a new life expectancy for each one of those particular items. We've been attempting to use a firm in Daphne that does that, and they've not been responsive at all. And so now we are trying to use a firm over in Pensacola. So hopefully by sometime, I would hope around February, maybe March at the latest, we should have a brand new reserve fund study, which will be tailored off the one we currently have. And we probably will even add a couple of new items that have not been in the original study. And what you use that study for is that determines how much we try to allocate each year in the budget. If you got 20 items and the total for this year is $100,000 for, a total of all those prorated out, then that's the amount you would put in your budget to target to try to accumulate. So hopefully we'll have that done sometime around the first of the year.
I know we don't want to go in detail here, but just if you could mention a couple of the big ticket items that are going to be part of that study, just so everybody understands.
Well, yeah, and every year when you get a copy of the audit report, the very last page back in the back, it's got the reserve fund study in there. It shows, what the balances are. But your roof, exterior painting of the building, elevators, pool railings, building railings, all the major components of the building is what you try to incorporate in that reserve fund study. And, we may say, okay, if a new roof is $350,000 and now it's got 16 to 20 years life, then we're gonna try to target, $10,000 a year for that portion of the reserve fund study. Same thing for painting and whatever. So with all the elevator work and stucco repair and whatever, the building envelope of the building is in good shape. And it should be a number of years before you have to do anything other than routine painting. Your painting of the exterior and caulking is only good here on the coast for anywhere from 5 to 7 years. You're gonna have to do it about every 5 to 7 years. And that can vary depending on how harsh the elements have been, how many storms it's been exposed to, whatever, so. Yes, ma'am.
On the roof, is there any way we can tie that in with the damaged enough from the storm that the insurance will cover part of that?
Well, you may have missed, I said a little earlier that the building engineer who has been to the building and the adjuster both have agreed that the roof should be repaired. Now, the question is, how much of that cost is the insurance going to reimburse the association for? I doubt very seriously, because that roof is 14 or 15 years old, I would doubt seriously that the insurance company is going to say, okay, the roof was totally destroyed by Hurricane Sally, so we're going to allocate $350,000 to replace the roof. They may say 100,000, they may say 50,000, who knows? Until we get those final numbers, we won't know that.
Well, at least that would go towards.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That would be less of a assessment.
Yeah, anything we get would certainly offset some of the costs of the replacement.
It's not replacement value insurance though, is it? They're gonna depreciate.
They will depreciate, yes, particularly in the instance of a roof.
Yeah.
They're not gonna bite the whole nut for a new roof just because Hurricane Sally did some damage. Now, if that roof was a year old,
Right.
Then they probably wouldn't quibble about that at all. If it had been ripped off and, opened up completely and whatever. But that's not the case. We don't have that kind of damage up there.
So last year when we talked about reserves, we kind of came to conclusion that we're not reserving enough. That was sort of like gut feeling, right?
I can almost assure you that's going to be the
Right.
case.
So there's really two ways to fix this. One is to do assessments on a regular basis, and another one is to decrease the operational cost to where we could reserve more with keeping the same fees monthly and all that stuff. I was just wondering from your experience, because you see other buildings here, can you kind of give us a gut feeling for where we stand compared to other buildings? Are we reserving not enough compared to all others? Is our PD lower? I mean, where's our problem that our reserves continue to be an issue?
My experience is across the board, virtually all condominium associations do not every year in their budget put the amount of money they should be putting to fully fund the reserve. And, you know, that's always tempered by the fact that they have other items that they have to consider, other projects they have to do. There are some buildings that are close. I've got one building that they're probably in the best shape of anybody I know. They've had over $1,600,000 in reserve. No major issues that they're looking at for the next 4 or 5 years. But right now, you know, they're eating up their reserve money doing building repairs, again, because they don't know what their insurance recovery is going to be, if there's going to be a shortfall or not. But I'm sure in their case, they'll probably go right back to targeting, you know, the amount of money that they've been putting in. And they've been putting somewhere like $175,000, $200,000 a year.
So how do they do it compared to us? Is it higher monthly fees or
No, they
have
do it
lower
the same way.
expenses?
They build it into their budget. They build it into their budget. And if that item, along with all the other items in the budget, warrant an increase in the monthly assessment, then they've been quick to do that. Matter of fact, this particular building I'm talking about, they've already announced in January, they will have a rate increase in their monthly assessments. One of the other buildings down the street from you, Crystal Tower, Chris has got a unit in there. They increased their last year, their budget.
No, we increased ours last year too, but
Right,
maybe not
right.
now.
And they made a couple. And they're targeting like, I remember from memory, I think they're $300,000 this year alone, they're targeting to accumulate for reserve.
That building is a lot.
But they're a lot bigger.
A lot bigger, a lot more profit, a lot more expenses, and they're not where we need to be there, but then again, just like with this one, we just spent $2 million in the last couple of years for things. We were in the middle of budgeting to spend again, and then this happened, and so, I mean, I've got, not at that building, but at other properties, I've already got a letter. I've got one $20,000 assessment, and they say we're gonna have 2 more before January, you know, at a different building, which is thankfully I'm not on the board, or I guess unthankfully right now, I'm not on the board of.
Well,
It's just-
and you mentioned to us yesterday that one of your buildings regularly assesses $6,000 a year for insurance.
Yeah, the colonnades every January is five or six, depending on how much insurance. I'm sure next year, this coming year, it'll probably be 8. You know, but that's how they pay their
Every year.
insurance. It's not a line item in the budget. I mean, it is, but they assess that insurance amount every year, you know, to the owners in January, which is the best time to get money from a rent building.
Exactly.
Because we have no renters.
But you know, but to your question, it's all over the map, what people do. You know, so many associations that I've seen over the years use the old Fram oil filter motto, pay me now or pay me later.
Right.
You know, some of them choose to keep their assessments as low as they can, and they don't fully fund their reserve fund.
But
And
then
they
something
have-
happens and
Then
they
they
have
have
a
a
larger
large
bill.
assessment when they have to do something.
And-
Others have tried to take a more common sense approach, you know, let's build it up, let's get it there so we can do what we need to do when we need to do it and be able to plan. And that necessitates routinely, every couple of years, increasing your monthly assessment.
I think we need to have that discussion after the study is done, and then really I'd like to have kind of conscious decision made by association of which path we're gonna take forward. So we all either expect regular assessments, or we expect higher fees, and I also want to really look hard on operational expenses, because when I looked at the budget last year in a very detailed level, it looked like and I don't know enough, right, but it seems like if we only can reserve 100,000 and we're spending $1 million a year, there's something wrong with that picture.
Well, and we had not raised our HOA fees for several years. You know, our expenses go up but we weren't contributing or, we weren't.
When was the last time we had?
Like last year.
We increased it last year. It was 2008 was the only increase that we had had prior to last year.
Yeah.
So a couple of years into the building.
It opened in 07, 08, right?
06.
06, so yeah.
And then see, there's another argument that enters into this a lot of time with associations. Some associations don't want to have special assessments because they feel like that's a deterrent to being able to market and sell their if they're trying to sell it. Others take the approach, we're going to keep our assessments as low as we can because that's a deterrent to trying to market and sell my unit. I mean, the smart thing to do is pay what you need to pay to accumulate the money so you have it available when you need to do what you need to do. There'll always be some extraordinary circumstance that will maybe change that methodology.
And we did, we had a great reserve 2 years ago before the envelope of the building. And then remember, all of a sudden, we had the elevator issues that we weren't expecting at the same time.
And see, y'all have had to do some things that in the 14-year life of that building, you would not expect to do. I mean, normally buildings don't have the stucco to laminate off the sides of the building where you have to totally redo it. If it had been properly done during the construction, that wouldn't have happened.
And our budget and our plan was working towards having those two big projects done 12 to 24 months apart. So we could keep the cash flow going. And then Dieter looked at the elevator and went, you gotta do this now.
Yeah.
The big stucco panel fell off the side of the building. Now we gotta close the pools and all that.
Yeah.
Building now, so that's what ended up us having to spend
We
so
had
much
two.
so quickly.
We actually had two about a couple of months apart. And
But
I
now
was
we know
here.
so much more about this building and what was redone, and now with the hurricane money, we'll probably be in a better position to think about this work and a long-term strategy, and then adjust it as necessary, rather than having this ad hoc discussions of where we're gonna get the money.
Yeah,
We just need to get back on track.
I think after we get our insurance and we see what that's gonna do, we're past the elevator projects.
The envelope's been done.
The envelope's been done. I don't see any other major things. The roof will have to be replaced sometime. Hopefully insurance will kick in, a big part of that.
Yeah, that $1.6 million, I think, is about what we had a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We had a great reserve until all of this happened.
I thought, for some reason, I thought that was
To
lower
your
than.
question, also, again, associated with other condo complexes, which was a good idea before COVID and Hurricane Sally and everything else. But we're right there with a lot of other complexes that I'm familiar with. And I tell you, I can't tell you enough how much they have saved this association with what they did with the insurance. That buy down was huge.
Yeah.
So with everything else we're looking at, with reserves, and we have been hit with quite a bit, but with what the move that they made with the insurance, I think it saved tons.
First time the board's ever got a free.
Other
than the adjournment. Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is our, under old business, is our turtle lighting. And with the hurricane that came, we didn't have any turtle nests to anticipate. I know we have a lot of lights out in the parking garages. Robert, would you kind of bring them up to date on what you've been doing with the lighting situation and?
Anticipating the possibility of turtle nests this year, which fortunately for us did not happen, and the scrutiny we've already had from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, in trying not to spend money, we put a bunch of amber bulbs in our parking fixtures. In some cases, that provided enough light. In some cases, it did not. We took a bunch of pickle buckets and we made shields to shield the precious turtles from seeing even those lights. We did not attack the lights on the ground floor level. That's going to take a scissor lift, and by the time you spend that money, we need an electrician to actually replace fixtures. After Sally and after the recent cold snap and then the weather warming back up and moisture, down here, as we are all aware, that means corrosion. And we've had a number of fixtures go out once again on our parking decks and our ramp. So what I've been talking to Karen and the others about is that we need to replace the fixtures. They have a lifetime, and most of them are at their useful, long past their useful end. And so we're going to start replacing those fixtures on a gradual basis, which we would have to do anyway. It's going to cost a little bit more because as we replace them, we're going to replace them with the approved turtle fixtures. So that does cost a little bit more. We don't know how much of that cost we might recoup from insurance. They may say, okay, you can replace your fixtures. Oh no, those needed replacing anyway. They may say, okay, we're replacing them to code, which would mean that maybe they'll pay for turtle fixtures. That may be dreaming, but we are on. Those are the main lights that we have to worry about. We have lights that we need to worry about as we've been told, in the indoor pool. Those lights need to be turtle lights. We need to tint the windows in the game room and in the fitness center. We will need to remove or put turtle fixtures on all of the balconies, and that's a major expense. We need to enforce, if there is a turtle nest out there, turning the lights out at a certain time on those balconies and closing the drapes. It's either that or go through and assess each owner for putting in window tinting on your windows and sliding glass doors. That's if they come down here and hit us with a letter like they did next door. I have reason to believe, after we had fished 24 sea turtles out of our swimming pool, and many of them got across the street. One of them ended up in front of the Pepsi machine at Pier 33. That was all written up, and the letter was sent to Crystal Shores. We didn't get the letter, so we've been hanging on that. But we wanted to show them that we are moving toward compliance. When we had to replace the fixtures around the pool deck, we replaced them with turtle compliant fixtures. We've done some retrofitting as well as a maintenance man can do on our parking deck fixtures. But now, as those fixtures have largely been finished, destroyed by Sally, we're going to start replacing those with actual approved turtle light fixtures. Eventually, we have to do that in the parking lot as well, but we're going to wait till Fish and Wildlife says you've got to do this before we saddle y'all with that cost. That's it for turtle lights.
And you have contacted the electrician about ordering
Yes,
those lights?
that's correct.
But we don't have a price or anything?
We don't have a price, we don't have a time yet.
How many turtles did they survey in order to come up with this new regulation?
I don't think they do a scientific survey, they just decide that's something that they want to do. It's no different than the beach mouse issue.
Yeah.
I don't know why we just don't buy the turtles glasses.
You gotta wear shades.
But we're trying to just slowly incorporate that, so it's not a big hit for us until we get the letter and demand it.
Should we replace the balcony like voluntarily with yellow lights, just like yellow light bulbs? Would that help them stay away from us?
It has to be a particular frequency that's above 560 nanometers. They call that an amber light.
So you can't just like replace the light
No,
bulbs, at least to make it look less bright or something like that for everybody, so it's less attention.
If you put that particular LED light bulb in there, you can certainly do that. But that's not all they require. We have these nice nautical fixtures. Well, they're not as nice now as they were 14 years ago on your balcony. Those are direct light, and they don't want the little turtles to look up and even see that. So you have to have these hooded fixtures, these canisters that force the light down. So you're going to get a dimmer, yellower light in a spotlight in the middle of your balcony. If you elect to do that, and that's going to come at a cost, of course.
I got one extra question here on this. I don't know anything about this turtle thing as far as as far as the turtles, the baby turtles, if they see the light, they're gonna go toward the light, is that the idea?
Yes.
They navigate toward the moon?
To the moon or to the stars, and that's normally going to be, for here, that's going to be in the southern sky. But if there are brighter lights in the north, they don't know the difference. And that's the whole thing. And there is some truth to that. Because we have had, in the last 14 years, we have had 2 sea turtle disruptions. It's real. It does happen, and we're the biggest, baddest turtle beacon on the island.
And I think this has already been implemented in places like Florida.
Yes.
I'm not sure about other neighboring states, but, you know,
They're
it's,
also
it's a.
making the Cherokee
Individual baby turtles, like sea turtle sunglasses?
That's that was my recommendation.
Well, however you feel about the turtles, those parking deck lights out on the beach are obnoxious. And it's just bad design and bad building. It's totally inappropriate. It never had to be that way.
So what we're saying is all of our problems are really from the builders, so we should just like.
More than you can count.
But you've been here a while, that's it.
But you know, our building, I mean, yes.
I know that's total sarcasm.
Yeah. But you know, our building, we were one of the very few up and running,
Yeah,
even today.
yeah.
So, I mean, our building, we do have a lot of problems, but, you know, we have a good building. We have a secure building. We have a strong building. I know during Sally, Garrett, our security young man, he stayed at my unit. He stayed with the building. And I asked him, you stayed, were you scared? Did it shake? What was it like? He said he never felt anything.
I had both sliding glass doors open, because I wanted to find Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel. And we slept right through it. We didn't have any damage, we slept right through it.
I was on the 14th and the 8th. The building did sway, the chandelier was moving. I wasn't scared because I thought that's the way it should be. At 2 a.m., a 24-inch went by the balcony flying, but I still was standing at the window. The building felt secure.
Yeah. So we do have a good building. There are a lot of problems, but I mean, probably 95% of the buildings down here are built cheap and sold high.
Like the building right down the road, that half of it was like gone. Yeah, so I'm sorry if I came across wrong.
In regards to the building, hurricanes, do you mind to share with them what you and I talked about yesterday? My question to you, can you just kind of shed light on how the piers, how far down they go and how much we can withstand typically just?
Yeah, Jason and I were talking yesterday at the board meeting. He was asking me about some of these large buildings down here. You know, if we were to get a category 5 storm come through this area, there would be a lot of external damage to these buildings. You know, you probably would lose the whole roof. You would probably have some windows and sliding glass doors blown out. That type of thing. But even if we had a 12, 14-foot storm surge like we had from Hurricane Ida, the building is not going anywhere. These buildings have huge piling foundations under them. And you could lose your whole parking lot, you lose the swimming pool, you could lose all that stuff on the ground level. And the building will be sitting there. We had from Hurricane Frederick, we had just built, my partner and I, a brand new motel building. And it was designed for the storm surge to just wash underneath the building and go out the other side. And when the storm was over, that's exactly what it was, sitting there on piling. All the utility connections were gone, of course, underneath, and that type of thing. But within 60 days, we had people staying in the building that were doing debris cleanup here with the Corps of Engineers. All of these buildings have got huge piling foundations under them. So there'll be a lot of damage, which I never see, and I guess you should never say never, But I cannot conceive of a catastrophic collapse of a building like Crystal Shores West, Crystal Shores, these lighthouse, these major, large buildings on the beach. I don't ever see that happening. They're designed against that.
There's a lot of good things that's built in. One last statement, go ahead, because I know we need to move on. Like our generator's up a floor or half a floor. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that when that generator room, that's by design to keep it going after the water rushes in. But all the rest of the stuff under that building, I was here during Ivan when that building was done with pilings. Crystal Shores next door was built, we were there, but it's all built to be broken away. I mean, it's break away, the pilings, the pool, the concrete, everything's made to wash out of there quickly, so you don't hit those pilings. It's holding the building.
And I
That's
think
exactly what it is.
That's code.
Yes.
That is code now for the newer buildings. The next item is the gate around the swimming pool. I know we had a lot of hiccups at first with the security gate. It took us a couple of different times to get the right kind of closures and the right kind of locks, but I think now we are in good shape. Of course, I'm sure if you've been to the pool, you've realized that we have completely closed off the beach access from the pool, and the access is on the west side. It's worked out good for me yesterday. That's the first time I had used it, but we are looking at securing that before spring break. We will have something up. If we don't have the permanent fence up, I don't anticipate that at that time, but do you want to add anything?
Well, the pool security issue was raised by Patrick back there from 1105. And y'all voted last year, and we put in an electronic lock on the pool, indoor pool entry, and we put a mechanical lock on the outdoor pool gate. And we did that as well at the beach gate. We wound up taking both of those off, the initial ones, because they just could not stand up to the traffic out there and were a little too smart for a lot of the people who were trying to operate them. We got a more robust one that had to be welded into the present gate. The fence system that we got, and y'all will remember that the board was directed to spend up to $10,000 to put in a fence, put in gates, put in the security latches and all of that. And we also wanted to put some cameras in as well. $10,000 was, frankly, without having some bids in hand to see what it would cost, that turned out to be not enough money to do the project really well. And so to stay within that 10,000, we went with a low bidder. And if you ever see McCadden Fencing and Construction, run the other way. But get a couple of shots off first. So poor Aaron is going through there, and Patrick was out there too. He can tell you what these guys were like. But he still has to go and tighten screws on stuff that should have been welded. We did a lot of retrofitting to make all of that work. Now, Sally, as Karen had mentioned, did a number on us. We had a lot of sand in that pool that had to be dug out. Y'all saw the pictures. And then the latest one, Zeta, also put a certain amount of sand in the pool. Now, we had built up that berm, and that was part of the reason why we closed off that access, was in case we got another tropical event, which we did. And it stopped the same amount of sand from coming in. We just had a little bit come in. And we were able to clear that out with a slurry pump and to get the pool back in operation by the weekend. We are leaving it like that. We built a semi-permanent structure down there at the other end of the building. It's going to be, on the order of 5 months or so before they begin the process of rebuilding the dune and the beach. And that is a process that takes many months. They have these huge slurry pumps that are sucking up sand from the ocean floor and bringing it in these 1.5 to 2 foot wide pipes and pumping it out onto the beach, and then heavy equipment to sift through that and then to level it out and to build up the berm. And then they have to send the other sifting machines through to get rid of a lot of the shells and what have you that will be there. It's going to be a process, and the city is not going to let us have a boardwalk until that process is completed, at least for our section of the beach. So we had to have a permanent beach access, semi-permanent beach access. We put that at the other end because that was the only place we could do it to be up and running as soon as we were. We're looking at, and we would appreciate your input on where we want to put the permanent boardwalk. People have found, and again, this was a suggestion from Aaron and from Patrick, and we have found it to be true that by rerouting beach access away from the pool, the experience around the pool deck for those people there is much more pleasant. And I'll tell you, it knocks half an hour, 45 minutes or more off of the maintenance time on that pool, clearing that sand every morning and clearing sand off the deck. It makes it much faster. You still have to go clear sand at the other end, but that's a swifter process. So we're saving a certain amount on pool chemicals. We're saving a lot of time, a lot of man hours every week on the maintenance of the pools. So eventually, and y'all are aware that West Lagoon Cottages is coming, and their easement is going to allow them to have a passage down to almost that point and a few feet west of where our present beach access is. They're going to have their beach access. So I'm pretty sure we don't want to have both of those beach accesses right next to each other. So
Why not? Is ours is locked? What's the problem?
we could, I don't know. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at it. We still have to decide we want input, on this, whether we want to keep that there. And we do, and as Karen mentioned, we are going to secure that. Before spring break, we are going to have a security gate there with a code so that to get in and out of that access, you're going to have the Crystal Shores West code to do that, which we are going to change at the first of the year, by the way. Announcements forthcoming. One of the places that we have looked at as a possibility for the new boardwalk when that comes is over there next to the Pepsi machine, and to exit from there. That way, we still keep the pool traffic and the beach traffic separated. You get off the elevator, you head that way. It's not quite as far to walk as toward the end of the building. It keeps people from walking in that traffic zone underneath the building as well as much. You still have to cross, but you had to do that anyway. So that's what we're looking at. We'd have to cut that knee wall. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we do have some ideas about what we need to do around the pool and all of that, and that's coming up under new business.
Okay. So the pool gates are working good.
They are
now.
presently.
So.
We still fool with them.
So that is all that we have in old business. Our new business is storm assessments, and we've touched on it a little bit. We have no idea what it's going to cost to build a new boardwalk. And that will completely be on us. No insurance will pay for any of that. How many years ago did we build that one? 10 years ago?
No, 10 years ago when we did the last beach renourishment, I got a quote for building a new boardwalk because we weren't sure that that one was going to serve. And that quote 10 years ago was $40,000.
So we're thinking double that probably. We just don't have any idea, but we are looking at, we know our deductible for our insurance is going to be $25,000. Thank goodness it's not $225,000 or $325,000. 25 for that. We're kind of looking at $75,000 to $80,000 for a boardwalk. We have some landscaping. We need to redo around the grill area and other areas on the property. We've got a bid of about $5,000 for that. The west end fence, that we're gonna put up for this summer, and we expect that will be there in that position probably through the summer. They're not gonna start the renourishment for 5 months, so that's about March. And it will take 6 months, maybe. They work, has anybody been here during a renourishment? I mean, a lot of people know that, they start at one end and they just make their way, and they may only be in front of our building for a week, but you've got all those pipes and infrastructure and all this. It's a mess. I've been through 3 of them, and it's not, but you just do it. And then we have a beautiful beach. So we're looking at probably $4,000 or $5,000 to get that section of the west side for the new security gate. And then, as Robert mentioned, we're looking at a few different things on the pool side, and I saw a lot of nodding heads about removing the gate from the pool area to somewhere else. One of the things that we've brought up to kind of control some of the sand is putting another knee wall on that south side of the pool. We may or may not have to go down the east side, but anything we can do to prevent that water from coming up and getting in the pool will be better in the long run. We just haven't, talked to anybody or found, really thought about what we do on the east side. If we just do the railing fence like that we currently have, or what. And moving the entrance, as he said, somewhere over near the soda machines. So those are some of the things. That totals about $130,000 is what, it's just an estimate. Could be more, could be less, but that's kind of what we're looking at for an assessment. We don't have a projected date for the assessment, probably next year sometime, when we get all our figures from insurance and we know where we're at. So just keep in mind, we do think we will have a storm assessment.
As far as the security gate, are we talking about putting a security gate up at the existing beach access on the west side of the building?
Yes, and then when we redo the boardwalk, we will move that gate to the new entrance.
Okay.
So there won't be double cost.
Right.
We'll just move it and then finish out. I don't know what we'll put on that west side. We had a wooden fence. We may see that we have to have something else with the entrance for the West Lagoon cottages. We may need a railing fence. We don't know.
But the board's current thinking right now is that maybe the best beach access is right there where the Coke machines are.
That's what we're kind of thinking.
Yeah.
But we are open to suggestions or input or any, let us know.
And what do you think are the disadvantages to keeping it where it is right now on the west side, where the grills are?
Well, we
What's the
really
downside
haven't
of that?
explored, we really honestly have not explored a whole lot. Yesterday was my first day to go down there. I didn't have a problem with it. Just my quick thoughts would be, you've got West Lagoon Cottages gate, you've got our gate. They are not gonna know which one is theirs. I mean, there will be signs, but people are stupid and kids are stupid.
Yeah.
And they'll just go and they'll just, they'll tear the gate up. That's just my quick thought. You wanna be separate from that.
Is it your understanding there's gonna be a gate on that side for their access as well?
There definitely will be, if they do the project, there definitely will be.
So if we kept it there, there's gonna be 2 gates.
Well,
Yes.
let me back up off of that. The gate, their gate unless they put another one down there. Right now, they're just planning a gate at the street side.
Okay.
To limit and keep Las Palmas out and that sort of thing. They will not have a wash station, as far as I know, down there. I don't know that they're planning to put in a water main or anything else to get water down there. So, our temporary station would become their station too.
Right.
Go ahead, you go first.
Just to play devil's advocate for a second, because I have 3 kids, and I totally understand what y'all are saying about the pool and people coming through. Would it be a possibility to maybe have 2 or still have a connection if you do it by the Coke machines? Because my kids and our renters have kids, they want to be on the beach for 5 minutes, and then they want to be at the pool for 10 minutes, and then they want to go back out on the beach. And I'm a parent, and renters coming in,
Either kids.
like, you don't.
I
wanna have to
understand,
go.
and we will take all of that into consideration, but my very first thought is we will have one access. That's my first thought, because if you have 2 double boardwalks,
Double
Why
maintenance.
does it
Double
go
maintenance.
with the connecting one? You still have the one under, like, by the machine, but maybe you have one.
Christie, that would take city approval.
Oh, would it? Okay.
Yeah, they have to approve of a boardwalk in the first place. I don't know that they would approve of 2. I don't know that they would approve of a lateral one, going over to the pool. So, they can still, for the amount of distance you're talking about, if we did have another gate over there at the pool, you still got to use the code and get through. It's still roughly the same distance. You're only talking about another 50, 60 feet to get to the pool.
And I think that having that pool, a gate there at the pool, actually, you're gonna increase your sand coming in and out with a bunch of kids. But I just wanted to comment that I have a lot of faith in Aaron and company's input, and if they are seeing that they think a good idea is around the Coke machines, I would just weigh their comments very heavily as we discuss it.
Yeah, and the other problem with it being on the west side, as Robert has brought up before, is that's one-way traffic coming in there. And you have people, and I've seen it because I've been over several times now, where people just kind of wander down the middle of the roadway or whatever, parking lot, and wander toward that west gate to go out on the beach, and people are hopefully not zooming around that corner. But if we had it over, closer to the Coke machines, you would at least not, you'd see them coming.
Yeah.
Instead of around that corner.
Yeah, it's also better vision from the office to see what's going on. So if
Exactly.
something funny going on, they're more likely to see it because it's right there as opposed to somewhere they can't see.
Well, I'm more interested in watching that traffic during spring break, frankly, but,
So I think you can make that efficiently work over by the Coke machines. You'd probably eliminate 1 or 2 of the parking spots right there.
Well-
You could direct that some way through there.
That was-
One question I have is about the west lagoon and the access. You have about 5 feet parkway between our parking lot and the next door neighbors. Exactly what is easement for our west lagoon? And will it be taking some of our parking lot, or is it just that parkway?
it will not take any of the parking lot.
Okay.
It will take some of the shrubbery, which the city is requiring them to replace.
Okay.
David represented us there, as well as Karen and Peg, they were there as well.
And our attorney
Yes, Daniel Craven was there.
there at a city, was it a city planning or?
Planning.
Planning commission.
So is it a 5-foot easement?
It is a 5-foot easement. It has been there since the building was
Yeah.
built.
And what utilities are going through this? So they're gonna have to move, I saw some electric all over.
They will
there.
be-
That's gonna be on them, obviously, if that's.
Everything is on them
Yeah,
and
so
Nothing
kind
is
of
to
do
come
that,
over
this
in
is
front
gonna
of our
cost them a good $50,000 plus to move all the utilities.
that's,
It's worth it to them.
Yeah, so the other question is, so they bring that through there, what does that do for us then, as far as, will we have, or is the thought process, they're gonna have just a fence or a gate right at the front of the property line, or the?
Let me describe what we're looking at here. We're looking at, first of all, a security gate, and then 6-foot rail fences going all the way down to their boardwalk.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful they're not gonna have a gate there that would access be easily accessed in any way, aside from the one at the street. If they want to put another one at their boardwalk, they certainly can. But,
A lot of this was negotiated and it's part of what they did with the council or with the P and Z, with the developer. And it needs to be aesthetically pleasing to what we've got already. It needs to be secured, so they've done a lot of work in making the developers, try to make it as aesthetically pleasing and secure as they
So
can.
the city's gonna require that we be satisfied.
Yeah, so when you say aesthetically pleasing, obviously, we're not gonna have any shrubs, or, we're gonna have a parking lot, we're gonna have a fence right there.
they're going to replace the shrubs.
So that's confusing me. How wide is that sidewalk gonna be? Is it gonna be 3 foot?
It's going to be 5 foot.
They have 5 foot. It's however they wanna build it.
5 foot, but that's the whole parkway.
No, it isn't. There is,
So where's the shrubs gonna go?
the shrubs are going to go to the east of that gate, of that fence
On
on our side.
Our side.
On our side.
That's right. There is enough room to do that.
Okay, you're talking maybe just a foot?
Probably about 2-3 feet.
Yeah.
That much room there? Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that there are a couple of other things that they're going to do. They're going to be taking out an insurance policy, naming Crystal Shores West, indemnifying, holding harmless, and all of that. I think it's $1 million policy that Daniel Craven, our attorney, wrote into their covenant. So Crystal Shores West is held harmless against anything that happens.
We still own the property.
Yeah.
They only have, so that's the reason for the liability policy.
The other thing they said that they're going to do, that the city, it's a conditional use permit. So the conditions that the city has set with Daniel Craven and with our input that they have agreed to, they're going to be maintaining all of that. If there's a problem, they're not, walking up to Crystal Shores West and saying, hey, I don't have the security code, or hey, the gate isn't working, or what's all this trash doing out here? They are responsible and held responsible by the city to maintain all of that, as well as to maintain the policy. The other thing that they need to do is have explanations in place. And what was agreed to was signage that would explain to their owners and to their guests that what they have is an easement to get beach access. That access does not include our beach, which is north of that mean high tide line. South of the mean high tide line, anybody can go there. That's state property essentially. But north of that mean high tide line, where they put all the recycling bins up and down the beach on those poles, that is ours. Policing that, like policing anything, is going to be tough. It may not be possible. We're due to have 43 three-bedroom cottages over there, and there's going to be an increased load on our beach. One of the things that we discovered when we added the security at our pool deck was that this summer, even though we had a record year in terms of the number of people in our building, our pool deck was not as occupied, our beach was not as occupied. So we're not going to see, I think, an occupancy level higher than we've seen before. The silver lining in those 43 units that are going up across the street is that it's not 120 units in a high rise as originally envisioned and has and as there is permission to do. It was zoned for that. So it's going to remain this is another part of the covenant, it's going to remain what's considered a low residency development. So we need not fear a high rise coming in the future to crowd our beach.
Whereabouts is it that they're gonna be built across the road?
That gravel lot over there across the road?
Between
Los
overflow
Palmas.
parking, okay.
Yeah, it won't be overflow parking much longer.
Well, we own an ocean house
After
too.
describing everything we're talking about here, I strongly encourage us to do the access over by the Pepsi machines.
Yes.
Putting it right next to their entrance gate, obviously, where's everybody put their beach chairs, right? Where they access the beach, right? So if we're gonna be fighting these other groups going onto the beach and everybody's gonna be putting their chairs in one spot. And the other thing is just ongoing maintenance and complaining about that is just gonna be an equal meeting.
Yeah, well, and we intend to remove our wash station as well.
Yeah, I get it. So, but I would strongly encourage this with the Pepsi.
That plus vandalism, I mean,
Yeah.
Down there, you don't have any control other than they're gonna try to get in one way, they can get in. But at least underneath the window, security window there, you got some visibility.
A little more deterrent.
And that's one reason we.
And the bathroom for the people coming off the beach, they're gonna, across the street, they're gonna try to come and use our facility.
Yeah. And that's one reason we requested a 6-foot fence for their walkway, is so people don't jump over it, climb over it. We've thought a lot about it.
And it'll end up mirroring probably what our pool.
I think it'll look
fencing
great,
is.
I think it'll help even from the people right across the jump our fence. I think it'll make a big deterrent.
Yeah.
And then we can tie right into theirs and continue ours is how we see fit.
That's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah.
So that's what we have on that, and,
Just an
entirely
idea
different
of how
idea.
many items are left on the agenda, just that some of us are juggling
we're
some time.
we're finishing up.
I mean,
I'm gonna ask for an adjournment in just a minute. We only have, I'm sorry, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, what if you look at it entirely different? What if we give them access and the pool and charge them 50 grand a year and make some money for our budget?
The wear and tear.
Yeah, we don't need that many people. It was bad enough before we had the locks and the gates, I think.
If it was fewer people, I mean, 43 units, that's 3 bedrooms, that's a lot of folks.
Oh.
And we did consider what if we did do that. I think, was it you, Chris, even recommend, or, made the assumption, could we charge them, but we quickly realized we didn't want that.
Yeah, it's much.
It's liability, it's,
Just checking if we saw
yeah.
other creative ways to make it.
So the only other thing we have on the agenda is, board. We are all up for our positions on the board. So, we have agreed to continue to serve on the board. If you want us, or we are willing to take any nominations from the floor. And if there are no nominations and you want us to continue to serve, we do need a motion to continue with us on the board.
I'll second it.
Okay, let me have some unit numbers, please.
Ann Davis, 905.
And 1403.
Yep.
Any other questions before we have an adjournment?
Sorry, I have another one about
Okay.
parking. It appears that most of the parking spots now under the building have been reserved. And I think I've been in a situation many times where you can, for part-time finding parking and yet those spots are empty. What's our policy on reserving those spots, and if people are not there, like half of the year, could they be released to public? Or, I mean, what are we gonna do when the overfull parking lot's not available?
Those are fully conveyed parking spaces, people paid for them. And we do not allow people to park in them, except in the case of like a storm where you're trying to get everybody up off of the ground floor. So you would just have to negotiate with somebody that owns one.
Is there people who reserve them, they're there all year? Is that what the rules are, or
They
or anybody?
They bought them. You bought them.
own them.
You
Yeah,
bought
they
the
own them,
park-
they pay
Yes,
for
they
it,
were
they
purchased.
It's like their
Like
condo.
$25,000.
Yeah, they
How
were,
much that means,
yeah.
to buy one? And it's like no annual,
This is Robert.
25, you pay, it's yours.
And there are no more available to be
I'll call you
sold.
back.
Oh,
And one of the good things about putting the beach access on the pitch machine is we don't lose any parking spots, which we can't do legally. So that something needs to be brought up there.
the parking's gonna be a problem if you lose overflow, what are we gonna do? I've had renters where they could not park. I've had renters, in some of course, where you have.
Well, the times when this happens, when overflow parking has been needed, And what other agencies and what have you do, like Meyer, they say park in our parking lot, or people will go and park at the Walmart parking lot or Rouse's or what have you. But we've used overflow parking by permission from Merrill Land Company in the past when we had all of that reconstruction work going on. We needed a place for people to park. Other than that, people have used overflow parking when they come in with 3, 4, 5 cars for the Hangout Festival, and they needed somewhere to go. Well, they're not going to have anywhere nearby to go now, and that's just what it is. And other times, major holidays, we'll sometimes see that kind of overflow parking need. We will no longer have access to that property. You're right.
Any other questions before we adjourn? Yes.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Wanted to reiterate how thankful we are to Robert, his staff, the board members, any condo owners who were here or contributed in any way to helping everybody. And we totally appreciate it. We're so grateful. Y'all did an awesome job.
Do we have any new 2020 new owners? I'd say congratulations. It's all downhill.
And I want to thank everyone for coming today. We did have a quorum. That's rare. It's rare for us to have a quorum. So.
2 years in a row.
I'm sorry.
2 years in a row.
Yes, we should
What
have.
happens when you raise money?
One last point is if we had a motion and a second for the reelection of the board. It's fairly important that we either take a vote or everybody applauded just about. Is it okay if we say that's by acclamation?
Yeah,
sure. Okay, very good. Let's bring that up. One final announcement at 12 noon today. Weather permitting, we can assemble out there on the pool deck where we will have finger foods and soft drinks and water or whatever you decide to bring for the annual owners social. If the weather is not permitting, then we will serve in the game room, COVID restrictions permitting. The last thing that I would ask is that we have a mask contest right now. I am clearly the leader, and maybe Susie over there. That's all I have.
All right, could I get a motion to adjourn?
9:05.
In a second?
A second, to be 8:02.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Haven't seen your Twitter feed because they've announced.
What, you don't want them?
Oh,